This is the intro to our podcast. It's time to join the resistance and fight back. So ramp it up, it's going down. It's punching back with B and Punks.
What's up? What's up? This is episode 1 in our new podcast, Punching Back with B and Punks. And we decided what better way to kick it off than with our good friend, Mr. Talking Shit with Pete. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, buddy? Hi, B.
Hi, Pete. So good to have you here.
So I'm honored to be here right now.
I appreciate you being here too, and I think we should kick it off with kind of what we're doing here on the first episode.
I fully agree. And you guys have a really, really interesting story.
Something like that. Well, we brought Pete on for our first show because we felt like it was important that we had someone with us to walk through this story. As Pete said, it's interesting, it's tumultuous. So it's good to have someone along for the ride, and no better person to do it than Pete himself. So lead us off, Pete.
Truly appreciate it. Okay. So I'm going to just, I guess, dive right into it. For those of you guys who don't know, actually, you know what? How about before I even ask a single question, how about we get a little bit of background for everybody, from you guys for everybody? I don't know which one of you would prefer to start, but whoever wants to start it off.
I say you kick it off.
Yeah, I grew up in Northern California. I had very progressive parents, to say the least, in the Humboldt County area, if you know what I mean. When I was 10, 11 years old in 92, Rodney King beating happened. And I remember turning and asking my mom, like, why, like, seeing that on TV, it was the first time I was like, why are they doing that to him? And she did not hide the truth at all and told me because the color of his skin. And it turned into a kind of a circus. I was about 50 minutes north of Oakland growing up, and as a child, they allowed us to walk the track, the circle, and the playground as solidarity protests that were going on at the same time in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And at 13, I moved back to Wyoming with my parents. That was an experience, to say the least. But at 17, I moved back to Denver, and I've been here ever since. But I did find myself participating in the Michael Brown protest in Ferguson, Missouri, by coincidence of traveling through. I was a big activist for political reasons, obviously, for those who know me on TikTok, right? I speak my mind on political issues. And during the George Floyd protest, I, documented that on Facebook at that time, but went 10 straight days. And I mean, we've done the Roe v. Wade. We've done dang near every protest that's been here in Denver, and never changed my ways.
What about you, B?
I had way different upbringing. I had to find my way into this life through many choices of my own. I'm a 5th generation Colorado native, born and raised familiar with the community. My family was very evangelical, right-wing Christian growing up. I spent more of my time in the church than out of the church, to be honest. Probably the most formative decision of my life was getting pregnant at 17, having the most wonderful child, and the experience that has ultimately brought us to this point. I spent pretty much their entire childhood working and going to school to take that next step up, try to give them something better than just being a single mom in a really expensive state. And so it was, every step that I made along the way was to try to get out of that, to try to get us into something a little bit more stable. So I was fortunate enough when they were 5 to start college. I went back to school. I had dropped out of high school when I got pregnant and chose to stay home with them. And then when they were 5, I started my undergrad. I decided to go to business school because that's the safe bet that you do when you just need a good degree under your belt. And for the first time in my life, struggled really, really bad in school. I was a straight A student. I took honors and AP classes all the way through high school. I loved school. I love learning. I'm the biggest nerd on the planet. And So to walk into college, which is supposed to be this like really freeing experience, and immediately start failing classes that I was going to tutoring for, taking after class tutoring or sessions with my friends, um, to fail a couple of classes was just like more than I was prepared for. But I was also taking my prereq English classes at the same time, and I had a professor that assigned each of us to do a debate speech on a pop culture relevant issue. And I was an older non-traditional student, and she handpicked me to debate why Donald Trump was a valid and best candidate for president, because at the time we were going into the 2016 presidential elections. And I was kind of in tatters about the whole thing because I didn't believe it at all. And so to push yourself to do hours and hours of research for like a 15-minute debate speech about something you don't believe in was pretty painful. But I learned through that process what it meant to um, really put effort into a message and what you wanted to say and what you wanted to speak and how powerful that can be. And the person debating me on the other side, that Donald Trump did not deserve to be president, ended up losing that debate because they were vastly unprepared, because it felt like an easy dunk
Mhm.
to just come in and talk about it. And through that process, I learned that I wanted to go into writing, and particularly activism writing. And I spent the next 6 to 8 years getting my undergrad. Stumbled into COVID and had to stop going to school so I could stay home and work and take care of my kiddo.
Mhm.
And then in 2021, we met Jason, and uh, that was really the big step into activism. And we had met right after the BLM protests.
Okay.
And one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't go downtown and just observe and write about what happened at the BLM protests. And I had told him that. And we haven't stopped protesting since,
Yep.
really. Every opportunity to be in the streets. That's how we ended up in this activism world.
So that's it, which it's two completely different stories, which is amazing that both of your worlds fucking collided when they did at such a pivotal moment in our country's fucking history. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And what a fucking power couple you guys have become in 4 fucking years.
Yeah,
4 years.
it's been a fight, Pete. We've been through a lot on and off this app, to
Yeah.
be TikTok, to be specific. But that's made us a lot stronger as a power couple, learning how to deal with these things, and then like preparing us for like kind of the adventure that we're on now. I feel like the experience in the doxing and the constant bullying and harassment and the millions of troll accounts made and those kind of things, once you've put that all behind you and dealt with it, you don't worry about it moving forward, which a lot of people do in the position that we're in, being in the limelight.
True. There's a current topic that you guys are dealing with, which is making its way across the entire country, from east to west coast and everywhere in between. Just recently this week, you guys went in front of the Senate in Colorado. Do you guys want to talk about that at all?
We did end up in front of the Colorado State Senate this week. Uh, all of this really started when we were coming up at the tail end of our custody dispute. To be honest, we've been fighting for majority custody of it's my child, but it's definitely Jason's child at this point.
Facts.
Without a doubt, that child adores him more than life itself. But when I finally graduated college last summer, I was able to secure a really good job with salary pay, benefits that are truly unmatched, and that that was the goal. That was everything I had been working toward, was providing that better life for
Yeah.
Ollie.
And to really, like, it is this storybook. Like, we decided to go back to school. She kicked butt and got through all the classes, graduated, instantly got the good job. It was like awesome how everything fell into place.
So, something our kiddo has been asking for a long time is to live with us the majority of the time for a lot of reasons, and we can unpack those as we go, but that was their ask. And we were in a position finally with both of our jobs, both of the lives we were living. Our oldest had graduated high school and is working a job and very self-sufficient, that we felt we could make that case of why we believe that our child living with us 80% of the time was in their best interest. I was also aware that my child was already unique in all of the very best ways. And so we sought out very specifically a LGBTQ family attorney because we wanted someone that was familiar with um, blended families with a really queer child. It wasn't just gender. Ollie has always been their own person.
And at this point, they had been going by Ollie for 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah, March to
Months.
August.
Yeah. So wasn't super new at that time.
Yep. So we retained an attorney, and one bad chain of events led to another. It's just he was a newer attorney. I'm not here to ruin his day or his reputation. I hope there were some lessons learned all the way around, but he did not properly vet conflict of interest, and ultimately was actually talking to my ex and his new wife at the same time. And we did not know this until the attorney already sent my proposal to my child's father. And my child's father let the attorney know that he'd been in conversation with his wife and that he needed to withdraw from the case. And at that point, things were already pretty contentious. And so we kind of just paused actually after all of that happened. And I was like, I'm not going to poke at things. Things are pretty heated, and that's not in the child's best interest.
Yeah, and even because I'm definitely between the two of us, the impatient one, the instant gratification. I was like, "Are you gonna fucking file on this motherfucker or what? Like, let's fucking go!" And her response was,
Let's just wait for just a second. Things are really heated, and I feel burned. I have represented myself through everything thus far, and frankly, I've won every time I've stepped into family law court. And to be burned by an attorney, I was like, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust somebody else to do this for me again. So I'm just gonna wait. So, long story short, the messages between my child's father and I continued to just get contentious, and he requested a child family investigator.
"Yep," just out of the blue, it was like he filed. He filed
Well,
for everything.
No, he didn't though. He didn't even file a motion to modify, so he didn't even formally ask the court to change anything. He just said he wanted an investigator to investigate.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he asked for a CFI, and we were getting to the tail end of that as of April of this year. So that was in September. He asked for a CFI. We'd gone through the whole process, and then April of this year, we were in family court.
Yep.
So we get to the end. Final orders are issued, and I see that there is a video going viral on X of my child's father at a school board meeting.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had literally just got out of court with the father.
Like hours.
Well, and the father's behavior was extremely different in the court. He felt like he had, the world behind him, and we didn't recognize this, right?
Mhm.
And ultimately, we won that court case, as everybody knows, and we got 80% custody of the child.
But in that speech, there were some really, really audacious claims that were made. There were some really big accusations and some really not thinly veiled threats. And I said to him, I said to Jason, I've known my child's father our entire lives. We were kids when we met. I was 17 when I got pregnant and dropped out. We were kids, and I've never seen him speak like this. I've never seen him behave like this. And I was like, we need to kind of keep an eye on some things. And then I continued to watch his ex posting after court, as I had a feeling he was probably quite upset. And he posted the judge's full name immediately.
Right after court.
And I was like, oh boy, we're gonna do the typical Republican behavior where we're gonna start doxing public officials because things didn't go our way. So I took another deep breath. And then I realized there was a fundraiser that had my child's photo, my child's dead name, my child's preferred name, and a very detailed description of what they look like now, because the photo that he used was not current, and description of what they look like and where they went to school. And I'm not really sure he understood what was happening there and the amount of target that he put on that child's back.
That's
And
fucking
that school.
huge. Their name is out
Yeah.
there and where they go to school. Like, that is more than enough information that the wrong individual needs.
Correct.
Full informations of staff members at the school, full names, what they do at the school, what county the school is located in, to encourage people to protest and really like push back on this school, but like not in a First Amendment, like I'm going to go peacefully protest. We're talking go to school board meetings and say things like, you're going to remember my name, as if that's not terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. For the record, I have seen this video. I saw it. Jason sent it to me and he was like, you might want to watch this video.
For context, right?
Exactly. While setting up and everything for this interview. And it blew my mind, some of the things that were being said. As a father myself, it blew my mind hearing a lot of things come from another father, or what should be a father.
And then when you get messages from strangers off of social media app that was like, I didn't want to go to my car until he went home because I was so scared of him. Like, yeah. We heard the speech too.
Yep. And really, to be honest, that's how we ended up in front of the Senate. As we just talked about, how both of us want to have been in activism. My life's work dream is to be in activism, and you see someone come out and speak really, really intentionally frightening things. That was very intentional rhetoric to elicit fear in people who are listening. I think that sometimes when people do that, they do that because they feel unopposed and they feel safe and comfortable saying those things to usually a vulnerable population, in this particular case, trans kids and public school teachers.
Well, and it's also about the lies that he told about his own child. And as we're all reminded that the internet's forever.
Yes, it is. It does not go away.
We made a commitment to each other right then and there that we would be at every public hearing possible in Colorado, school board, judiciary, legislative protest. It didn't matter.
Yep.
We were going to be there so that people understood that their voices may be loud, but they were not the only voice. And so when HB 2513-12 was set for a Senate Judiciary hearing, we said, let's go.
Yeah.
So
And we signed up.
there's the long form version of how we got to testifying in the Senate last week.
Which
I'm never short-winded. Don't ever ask me a question you want a short answer to.
no. This is good. This is yours. This is both of your story as well as Ollie's story, and there's no such thing as too long of a response. This is in no way, shape, or form anything that should be rushed. So if you give a short answer, I'll yell at you. So just remember that.
I appreciate that.
So you brought up the CFI. Full disclosure, I have seen the CFI. Every name on that CFI was redacted. So if anybody's watching this and you have an issue with that, no, I don't know who you are. And your identity is completely concealed unless you so choose to bring it forward by being bothered by the fact that I have seen something with no information whatsoever on it.
All the names were redacted off the report.
every single person's name. Not a single name made it through. And I compiled a list of questions for you guys.
I think an important thing to say to start out with the CFI report is, let's be very clear that the father asked for the CFI report. The father not only wanted the CFI report, but then he wanted 80-20 custody in the original files.
Mhm.
And that gets lost in the sauce. But I think it's something that's very, very important to put out there, because this is a rare case where somebody that asked for the CFI actually lost the custody battle and ended up with 20%. And midway through that, he asked for a stay, which means he wanted it to stay 50-50 custody.
So he realized that
And
he wasn't
after
going
we
to get
talk
it.
about the report, I want to go back to him asking for 50-50 custody and what that meant in court.
Mhm.
It's just very important to remind the people that are watching that the father asked for this originally. So everything that we're talking about moving forward was what we were doing on the defensive. We were she was the first time she had to play the respondent and like wait for him to do the things that he didn't do and step up and do them as the respondent, which is, if anybody knows, is very rare.
Yeah.
So we get the CFI was ordered, had a certain amount of days to come up with the CFI because he was the one who asked for it once it was granted, and he did not. And on the second to last day, yours truly had one already in mind, had one picked out off the Colorado list, everything completely and utterly legit.
Mhm.
To make sure her schedule would allow to take on a case of this capacity right now.
Previously verified that she was available to do it. And like when I said that on the Senate floor, which we'll get to about falling through the cracks, like that's real shit. B was like, I'm going to have all my ducks in a row. A lawyer couldn't defend me any better because I know this case better than anyone. And I'm going to make sure that I have a backup plan because we know that dad is not going to follow through with what he's supposed to do.
Mhm.
So on the second to last day, she puts it in the court filing. The judge approves it, and the father doesn't disagree. That was his one chance right there to say, nope, I want somebody else.
Yeah, I think the court order says he has 14 days to respond.
And he agreed.
Yeah, he did.
Ultimately, he agreed with the CFI.
Yeah.
And then the next important thing, which is also another thing before we get into the actual report, is I wanted to be very clear that the thing that he asked for, he did not pay on a timely manner.
Mhm.
In the state of Colorado, your half of the CFI is $1,800.
Yeah.
And we paid that on December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. Let's
Mhm.
say our kids had a good Christmas, but they were the only ones in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an unexpected $1,800 bill. And this really upsets me because he asked for it. And then come to find out after contacting the CFI after Christmas, like, yo, what's up? Or the father has not paid for his half of the CFI.
Mhm.
And then the mother reached out to the father. She pretty much was like, are you going to step up and do the thing that you asked for? And are you going to pay your half so we can get through this mess that you created?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, I'm going to pay for it so we can finish this already.
We literally offered to pay his half to get this report going.
Mhm. That's fucking insane. So they wanted this CFI and you guys paid for this CFI and they couldn't even. That is mind blowing.
As you saw in the report, this is all documented. It says at the beginning, the father was not in participation until later, and then he was fully in participation. That was her saying nicely he didn't pay until the mom was like, yo, do the thing.
Yeah, it's time to fucking pony up, boy. So one of the things that I noticed, or especially in there, in the CFI, it talks about the decline of visitation, and you can see the switch of where it was to where it is now. And it doesn't talk much about that. However, it does talk about it later, but it doesn't talk about it in that spot. When did you guys realize that it was time to get more custody of Ollie? Like, what was the catalyst that really sparked it for you guys to be like, this isn't right. Something needs to change?
I mean, I'll give my first answer, which is again in my speech, and it was the most. It's the for me the biggest one personally is like watching a child leave your house when it's dad day, go home day, the 50-50, and they were not okay that day. Not up until they're not okay the night before. They're worried about the conflict, the conversation, the constant, just being overall shitty from the stepmother, to be very honest. And then just like they have to have their tears, and then you have to like coach them up and be like, it's gonna be okay. It's just a week, and like that was every single time, and it was like it shouldn't be that way going to any parent's house. If you're really like accepting, loving, and showing a great environment and a safe environment for a child, there should never be a child that cries, you know.
I'm
It's interesting
expecting
hearing
another
it from.
long-winded response, B.
Well,
Or
I'm gonna do the worst thing, right? I'm gonna answer your question with a question that so like Pete, did you see in the CFI report in their interview with the dad, he says that he believes Ollie's relationship with their stepmom directly is directly correlated to my relationship with the step, and that if we're on good terms, Ollie and the stepmom can be on good terms. And I
Which, I'm sorry, but a child has to come first at all fucking times. Like,
am I
we got
crazy?
there fast.
yeah,
But am I just crazy in thinking that's a really unnecessary
that's
and inappropriate standard?
it is,
Um,
because you're essentially saying that this child will suffer if you don't get along with my wife.
Right, exactly. And there's context. I'll
I was gonna
toss.
say.
Yep, I'll toss a little bit at that. So right before we went into COVID, I was leaving a very bad relationship where that individual, not my child's father, but that individual tried to break into my home one night, and I knew very deep in my heart that in that time frame my child could not stay with me full time, for a little bit, and I needed to make my apartment safe, and I needed to make some new choices. And so I asked my child's father if they could spend more time over there for a little bit. And I was really straightforward in my ask. I asked if I could come over there anytime I wasn't at work, so that I wasn't missing out on time with my child, because I didn't want my relationship with them to suffer because of somebody else's bad decisions. And so
They ultimately became friends.
yeah, he lived 15 minutes from my apartment. So
Of the three of them,
yeah,
the father, the stepmother, and B.
yep, at the time he was still just dating his current wife, and I'll give her credit where credit's due. She was very, very kind to me when I needed to leave that relationship. She was very supportive and spent many late night hours with me because I couldn't sleep. I didn't feel safe. She was very kind to me in that time. And she did. She became my best friend. There's social media posts galore out there. Anybody can see them. Um, and to such an extent that when they got married in 2020,
At
they
Disneyland.
Universal Studios, but
Whatever.
yes, we went to Disney World too. They not only invited me on the trip, but paid for most of my expenses to go on the trip, because I was like such a part of the family. But it was a single mom not receiving child support
For 2 years while they saved up to buy a house during COVID.
and go on their universal wedding and all of the things, right? The money they saved on child support definitely went to their successes. Um, so the the context I'm trying to explain here is that what everybody needs to understand is that clearly the message that is being pushed is that because I'm no longer close friends with them, which is I'm sure something they would love to blame on Jason, because
I
as
can't.
when
Yep.
I met Jason, you stop living with your ex and his new wife all the time, and you hang out with your new significant other.
Yeah.
Well, and to be honest, like from the outside perspective, I could see that it was not a good situation, but both people were winning. It was a win-win situation. B was using them to get what they need out of having still a long-term relationship with their daughter at the time. And they had a permanent babysitter. They were using B like crazy, as in like going out to drink and watching the other kids and like all that. So it wasn't a great situation, but it wasn't like nobody was getting used without winning something.
It was a
One
symbiotic
of those
relationship
situations.
for everybody involved.
Yep. And I kind of called that out, to be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
when we got together. I was like, so like you you shouldn't be doing this for these. There was reasons, right?
Well, yeah, the grandparents live 5 houses up the street. Like, it's not like babysitting is a problem. It's not like I was doing something that they couldn't otherwise fill.
And
And I now had a place to be spending my time with my child and feeling safer in the world. Like, it had been months at that point. It'd
and
been 9 months since.
and to be clear, you had also transitioned during this time of college, the first go around to this beginning of COVID from being a Republican to a Democrat,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, yeah. Starting when I started college is when the 2016 election, I voted for Hillary. That was the election that changed me, and I knew that.
And for context, the dad is a super duper Trumper. Like stepmom wears the hoodie that says Trump's my daddy.
So when you do the full context of that we were friends and life was very easy for them, I didn't ever ask for anything from him because we were all already doing things together all the time. And so now I'm doing this shift in life. I'm kind of putting some boundaries in place, being like, you've gotten married, you've had another child, you need to go live your life, I need to live mine. uh there started to be some tension, and then like the covid the COVID pinnacle of, like, I think we all really learned you couldn't quite tolerate and be in tolerance with loved ones that were on the other side because people were dying. But when dad wanted to take them to Florida in the middle of COVID, and he was a COVID denier, and Ollie has had lung issues their entire life, I was like, so I'm not saying you can't take them. I just like need some assurances that you're going to put a mask on them and really keep their hands clean, and like just try with me, please.
Yeah.
And he got so mad that he filed an emergency injunction with the court to tell a judge to order me to let the child go on vacation. And I walked into court and was like, I never said the kid can't go. I just asked that you use COVID precautions when you go.
And let's be honest, for those who don't know, the real response that B gives in situations like that, it was I don't know how many page uh essay on the things of go ahead.
He said that he didn't want Ollie to have the vaccine or really take any of this super seriously because of risk of the myocarditis or infertility and inability to have kids. And I said that's just factually inaccurate. Those are not true about COVID. They've been disproven many, many times. And he was like, well, prove me wrong. So I did. I was getting my undergrad in English literature and professional writing, and I wrote a 13-page research paper that disproved all of that. And I submitted it to the courts. And I said, I'm just asking for basic decency for my daughter.
Yeah, you're not saying no. You're saying they can go, but please respect that I want them. Well, you cannot believe in this, but I do, and for the better of our child, can you put aside your difference of opinion?
And it was Florida. Let's be clear. It was
Yes.
Florida.
Right.
It wasn't Disney in California. It
Nope.
was
So to answer your question of like when I think I realized we needed to pursue more custody, majority custody. It was then. It was realizing
It was going
that
to be a fight every turn.
we just had we had changed a lot in our parenting approaches of what we might have once thought was best for the child in such a way that it was compromise is going to be increasingly difficult. And then when you pile in, like Jason was saying, that the relationship with the stepmom kept getting worse and worse and worse, and then they had more kids. And so Ollie was really feeling the like, I'm the part-time sibling and I don't really fit in here, and I'm 8 years older than my siblings, so I don't do the things they do. We were like, well, yeah, like you can come hang out here more often. And it was never like, let's remove you from your dad or remove that relationship. It was just, I think that we open doors a little bit more. We have a little more resources, a little more time, a little more open-mindedness.
And just like the CFI says and the judge says, we were doing this for Ollie. This is the main thing is this is what Ollie asked for. That was when they could verbally say, can you guys do this. That was you do something as a parent. You
And
don't hear that and then just do nothing.
Yeah.
let's be clear too. Ollie didn't ask to like leave. It wasn't like I don't want to be around right away. Like it was just like I think I'd like to be at mom's house a little bit more, so maybe dad will miss me and like appreciate me a little bit more, and we can have a little bit more fun. And as soon as they vocalize that, that's when
Yeah.
it really like how
And we
dare
were
they
in a
tell
really
him.
good position. We told them we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait till you graduate. We had more money because of your job, and we were just in a really good position. And we shot our shot and got burned by an attorney.
Which, what a
So
fucking,
the CFI
yes.
happened right. January?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Forgive me. I know well, I don't know everything, but I know so much about what we're talking about right now. And I'm still fucking blown away, like hearing it from you guys. Like, it's one thing reading it and like seeing snippets and clips on social media platforms, but to like literally hear my dog barking in the background, but to literally hear you guys, I'm sorry, I told you I have to,
It's all good.
You're
um,
totally fine.
but to
We can
literally
hear
like
you.
hear it from you guys like now is completely and totally different than I expected that it would be. Um, it's just an unreal fucking situation.
Yeah,
Um,
it's when you live it, it's so different when you actually are in it and you go to these rallies and these protests. Yeah, it's almost surreal at this point.
uh, so I have a question that I asked you already, B, if you would be comfortable with this one. And I want to ask it now. I feel is a good time because you brought up it's when you realize parenting styles were changing. So I will keep this towards you specifically. Um, in the CFI report, it talks about sexual abuse as a child. Do you think, or how do you think that something like that has affected your personal parenting style? Um, because it says that both parents are there, both parents, and I can't even imagine, but it says both parents were both victims of sexual abuse as children. And how do you think that affects your life as a parent? Because in the CFI report, there was talks about possibilities of also sexual abuse, but proven that there was none in the CFI. Um, so that's where this all ties together. Like, as somebody who survived something like that and has come out as amazing of a person as you are and what you've accomplished, how do you feel it has affected you and comes into your parenting style?
Lot. um, let's we can't ignore like the obvious element
Mhm.
in the room that we are living in a world where our teenagers are hyper exposed to all sorts of interesting materials.
Mhm.
And I sometimes I'm really, really grateful that I lived through sexual assault as a child and went through the system because I understand the risk on the other side. And it has taught me that it is so much better to just
Mhm.
have the uncomfortable conversation with my child to prepare them for safety
Yeah.
rather than be afraid of the world that's out there.
Yeah.
So for me, uh, I've always had a very candid, just honest relationship with my child. We don't really beat around the bush because I don't believe that's safe in the
Mhm.
world.
And with that for how B's been with Ollie is there's never ever a concern that Ollie wouldn't ring the goddamn bell if something was going on.
Yeah.
We have made sure that what has happened to you wouldn't happen to them as, being the protecting parents as best as we can as in our possession.
And I think one of those is that uh, I'm very open with Ollie about the ways that trauma has impacted who I am as a person, because I think that helps also protect kids and be more likely to um, speak out against any of those red flags, not just for themselves, but for their friends.
Yeah.
Something that I'm so, so, so proud of my child is that if any of their friends are going through anything, whether it is drama with their friends, whether it is discomfort at home, whether it is a teacher that they don't like, Ollie is quick to go through like a safety checklist of like, what level of alarm is this and who do we need to contact?
That's
And
amazing.
I take a lot of pride in that. And I think if there's any way that you can survive any sort of childhood assault and protect the next generation that you bring in, it's to not live in the shadows about it and hide about it. I
Yeah.
have been in therapy since I was 13 years old, so we are close to 20 years worth of therapy experience.
And it's amazing when somebody's had that kind of experience and you watch them use what they've learned with the child. I've gotten to watch some pretty amazing interactions with Ollie and B, and going through the steps of figuring out what's going on, and it's impressive. It shows that not only have you been in it, but you've learned and applied the tools that you've used.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very, very nice of you. um, and I think it you can do two things when you live through trauma. You can you can take all of the experiences and you
Mhm.
can say, what can I do in little ways every day to not perpetuate this, to not perpetuate the harm that comes from being a traumatized person? I don't want to like inflict that with any stereotype, but
Yeah.
I'm not always the best version of myself. And I candidly say at home, that is my trauma brain, and I apologize, and I'm working through that. When you don't take the time to slow down and work with those triggers, feels like an overused word sometimes, but it's what they are.
It's what, yeah.
Um, it makes it really difficult not only to be the best version of yourself, but the best parent that you can be. And this is in the CFI report. One of the areas that Ollie really lacks in their relationship with their father is the ability to receive physical affection. Um, Ollie's primary love language is a two-way tie of physical touch and words of affirmation. That
Okay.
child needs to be told that they are loved, that they are wonderful, but
They're
they
also
mean
the
it.
same to their mother.
Yeah.
Don't call me out like that, bro.
Listen, but
So when
there's
I'm just trying to paint a picture when they're both in this house and they don't get it from dad, you can imagine what it's like when they come.
Little things, like I was thinking the other day, we were walking into Walmart and Ollie still wants to hold my hand in the parking lot. Like, I don't know a lot of 13-year-olds that like want to hold their mom's hand, and they could care less. There's no shame there. And when they're at their dad's house, like they will describe that the type of hug they get is that like arm
That
around,
hug, yeah.
pat, pat.
They just kind of give them.
And
But so like
what
that's a really good thing to point out real quick because she's describing the experience you grew up. Did it change the parenting? So that is also a reason of why the dad doesn't show that kind of affection is because of what happened to him growing up.
right.
also a tragedy because nobody, as I said before, should ever have it, no matter who you are as a person. Nobody deserves something like that.
Absolutely. And I don't want this the way that we're talking about it to appear is that I'm like calling him out for that. I
Hmm.
don't believe I've ever
No,
called him out or
no.
It's not coming
confronted.
If
across that
anything,
way
you try
here.
to be helpful and supportive.
Yeah, it's been more of a like, so not only do you owe this to your child, but you do owe this to yourself to feel better. Like he deserves to know what it feels like to have a child run up after school because they haven't seen you in 7 days and hug you so hard you almost fall over. Like that's unmatched. There's
Yeah.
nothing like it. And they don't have that. And it is a compounding center point for their relationship and the struggles. And so when you ask like how does childhood sexual assault play into being a parent? Some days it is facing your trauma and asking, have I done everything that I can to protect my child? Because that when my child went through the age that I was when I was sexually assaulted, I was a hot mess. I was a helicopter parent. I was hyperprotective. I was like worried all of the time. And I know that's me. And I have to go to therapy about that and talk about how to let my child be themselves. And it does break my heart a little bit to watch someone so blatantly like choose not to do anything about it.
Yeah. Not to take care of it, to have a better relationship with your
child.
That was a really good question.
It was.
Thank you. It was literally, as I was reading the report, anything that I came across that I was like, this is a question that I need to ask. This is a question I need to ask. And it was a lot of going back and forth. And like, I was reading the CFI on my phone. So like I was zooming in as best as I could. I was like, all right, focus, Pete, just focus. Like, don't get distracted. But yeah, no, it was the first thing that had popped out as I was reading it, and it's still fucking right there.
Can I point out too, you brought up that there was concern mentioned that the child was being sexually abused.
Oh.
And
Okay.
I want to say as you ask, how does it impact your parenting when you've lived through childhood sexual assault? You believe that everyone is hurting your child on some level deep down. And so I do understand the innate desire to say, hey, while we're paying for a state investigator, I'd like you to double check that these things aren't happening. But on the other side of that, we need to have a really important just pause of, I believe it's pretty clearly stated in the CFI report that even the father himself said he doesn't really have any basis for why he thinks that, or why that was even a cause for investigation.
Because to be clear, the cause for investigation was proximity and tardies to school.
Yeah, there was no one ever listed that in the initial filings. He just kind of snuck that in there and then didn't have any justification for why he felt that way. And my my issue with the narrative that's getting pushed around that is like, it's very clear that it was planted as a intentional dig on trans people, and that it couldn't possibly be that Ollie could have an identity that they truly believe in unless they are being abused of some kind. And I think that's really, really harmful. And I think it's really important that we pause and slow down and acknowledge that while those concerns may have been voiced, they were not only disproven, but they were not even founded from the get-go. And we're not going to perpetuate the stereotype that trans kids are trans because they're being abused. Trans kids are trans because that's who they are.
Because that's how they fucking feel. So something I tell people all the time, and I say maybe this will help you understand how this person feels, is when we are all formed in our mother's womb, we all start off at the same sex, and then we change as we develop. So it is not so fucking far-fetched to think that somebody may have not continued developing, or somebody didn't mentally change from where they first came from and are just trying to get back to where they feel that they belong.
Bingo.
And yeah, before that, because I'm a little bit older, like, it was perfectly acceptable for the girls to be tomboys, right? Nobody cared that Jennifer was wearing boy jeans and a boy shirt and cut all of her hair off. We just called her a butch, or, like, she's a tomboy. Like, it was accepted in everywhere. Now all of a sudden it's like everything's politicized and everything has to be like labeled, and like you said, there had to be an event that happened for Ollie to change into this other human. And that just wasn't the case.
Which is, I don't even need to ask my next question, because the next question was literally about affirmation of how a child feels. I mean, the nail is pretty much hit right on the head, but we can definitely dive more into it. So Jason, I'm going to ask you first, because you are the stepfather in the situations. It's, as a stepfather myself, it is amazing to see another stepfather trying to do the best for somebody that's not even related to them blood-wise, and something I'm a firm believer in as a step-parent is blood does not make you family. I mean, blood does make you family legally, but who you choose to accept as your own family speaks volumes for things compared to the average person. Um, so as the stepfather, how do you go about making Ollie feel accepted by you?
I mean, I have to go back to when I first got the honor, the opportunity to meet them, right? B already knew that they were going to be head over heels as I was going to be. And full disclaimer, I have two boys. So at that point, they were a little girl, and I don't know little girls. And I accepted everything who they were at that point, and I knew they'd had a pretty, I don't want to say rough upbringing, but they watched mom struggle a lot, and they
Yes.
can tell you some heartbreaking stories that will make you bawl. That they felt like, when mom was sick, ever at the time was there to take care of mom, and you can tell that in their adult behavior already at 13 what they've been through. And so when it was them moving into our house, it was like, I can't take you to Disneyland because it's COVID and we kind of don't believe in that shit, but I can make my house Disneyland. And like I rolled out at some of the bubble wrap on the kitchen floor and gave them a scooter. Was like, you can ride this in the house. And they're like, are you fucking for real right now? They would ride the scooter around, and then in the morning we'd make pancakes and breakfast, and I'd always make extra pancakes, and we'd play frisbee pancake here in the house. We throw it back and forth, and the dogs usually end up with them. And that's how the game ends. But when the transition started happening, that they realized like it was already there, and that's what kind of upsets me with the dad. The dad acts like it happened overnight, and I was never spoken to when you listen to his speeches. And like that's a lie, dude. Like that's a flat out lie, because before they even took the name Ollie and changed their pronouns, you would always catch that kid in a butterfly or a rainbow tutu with a rainbow shirt and rainbow clips in the hair. And if you could find anything that had to do with the rainbow community, they were all about it then. And they were so proud of their mom. When I met their mom on TikTok, for those who don't know, what was your TikTok handle?
Bisexual Bumblebee 23.
Bisexual Bumblebee. And so like, but the kid knew, right? Just that, the father acts like they weren't supportive, but like the father would bring back rainbow stuff from Universal Studios in support of mom being bi.
They were going to bring my girlfriend on a trip with us. Like the
Right.
four of us were going to go on a
So
trip.
he can't act
Wait,
like he
hold
doesn't
hold
accept and understand the culture that was coming.
hold the fuck.
Uh-oh.
So B, you're bisexual, which I just found out now. Which has no real
I'd probably correct to pan at this point.
Okay.
Our language has developed.
And Ollie's father knew already that you were bisexual at that time.
Dating women.
So yeah.
And offered to
Supportively
pay
dating women.
and offered to pay at a time to take you and your at that time girlfriend on a trip.
Yeah.
But this man doesn't support LGBTQ plus community and has a problem with your child. And I hope that everybody watching, listening, like is understanding what I'm fucking saying and what they just said. That the father had no issue supporting you in that decision. And this isn't even anything sexual in any way, shape, or form. What Ollie wants to do, Ollie wants to literally just not be referred to as a female and just wants to be referred to as they, them, and referred to as Ollie.
Yep.
That takes
And
whole new fucking perspective on my point about this whole entire thing. And it's now completely and totally fucking asinine.
I'll raise you one more. His wife is still mutuals with my ex-girlfriend on social media.
Why is it okay for Republican men to think it's okay for women to do this and nobody else?
Yep.
I'm gonna fucking I'm gonna call it exactly how it's fucking coming across.
It's exactly what it is.
But when I would say the big change as being the stepdad is, so when we met, I was in a new developing area of my own, being what community I belong to as well then. So I was experiencing doing painting my nails. We would go out and I would dress in drag sometimes to the clubs. And I told you on the Senate floor, blame me, motherfucker. Ollie would love to sit down and paint my nails and do my makeup, and we would have matching toenails. And they saw a masculine man who wasn't afraid to cross those gender boundaries. And I really think I showed them, and they kind of was like, just like followed suit and was like, I'm wearing a Nirvana shirt and cut my hair because it makes me feel comfortable. And it's like, as the stepdad, it was like, whatever you're doing and how you're doing it and what you're doing, as long as you're being safe and doesn't hurt anybody, I'm going to support it, because they are a genuine human being, and it's not the phase that the Republicans want to paint it. There was a Ollie switch and a they them, and they've gone to the Senate floor last week to defend that to this point.
Yeah.
Don't forget your punk rock roots too. You want to talk about teaching that kid what it looks like to push back on the government and be exactly who you want to be. You showed them punk rock.
Yeah,
And
and as you know, Pete, the punk rock scene is all fucking accepting of
It's all about
whoever you are.
acceptance.
Yep, as long as you're not a piece of shit, a Nazi, or yeah, you already know.
That's the one rule.
As growing up in that scene, there was no hesitation of being like, oh, you want to be Ollie and they them, fucking got you. I'll be the number one fan.
Yep.
And what about you, B?
It was pretty funny when Ollie came out to me, actually. They sat me down in their room and we were just chatting about their day at school, and they said, do you think it would be okay if I used they them pronouns? And I did the mom thing and I looked at him all serious and I said, sure, why? Just because, like, where is this coming from, to talk about it first and foremost? And they gave me the most beautiful explanation about how some days they feel really girly and some days they don't feel girly at all. And they feel like every time someone calls them she, they can't be the less girly version of themselves. But they also really didn't want to be he or a boy. They wanted to still be allowed to wear their dresses and put makeup on. And even in that moment, identified that the thing that made them feel great about themselves was when their outfit was very boyish, but they had a full face of makeup. And so for them, it was always the both. And when you're talking to an English literature major with a minor in rhetoric and professional writing, and the kid can explain that it's literally a linguistic barrier for them, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And when you slow down and really look at who Ollie has always been, that was not surprising. Um, I have photos of that child coming straight out of ballet practice in a tutu and tights and ballet shoes, climbing a tree covered in mud, getting ready to jump down into the play four-wheeler at the same time.
They were also the goalie in soccer.
They were the goalie in soccer.
That's a tough position to play.
For sure.
I've never seen anything like it. That child took soccer balls to the face like I have never seen, and get back up and just dirt on the nose and move on.
One of the coolest things to experience with Ollie is when you're out in public and there's an old gentleman, and Ollie will hold the door open for him and he'll be like, "Thank you, son," or
"Thank you, sir."
They refer to him as a boy, and they're just like the lights, just like, yes, I did it. I got somebody fooled.
So yeah, when you talk about it like that and you share those experiences and you say like I'm gonna be honest, when Dad got out there and bold faced told the CFI and the judge, and now in courts and Senate hearings and with his friends on podcasts, to say that this child does not know how to articulate it is like the most infuriating and offensive thing maybe about this whole story, because
The child wrote a children's version book to try to explain it better to the father, and he still just like threw it to the side and said, I just don't understand it.
So for me, it was a no-brainer. I think a lot of parents who experience a child changing gender identities talk about experiencing a sense of loss. And I kind of went through that, um, but not in that the child that I'd always known was no longer there, because the essence of Ollie has always been and will always be Ollie. Ollie could change their name 10 more times before the end of their life, and who Ollie is will always be who they are. But there was a sense of loss of innocence, a sense of I understand that there will be people who will be unkind to you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
no parent wants that for their child in any way.
We knew they were going to be special because they always end up picking the hard road.
The hardest, the most difficult. But it was a no-brainer to affirm it. They teach me something new all of the time of what it looks like to be humble and curious
And a leader to their peers. They
Yep.
are a leader at that school.
Absolutely.
It has completely changed that child. When I said that to the Senate, not only has it changed them in a way that has gave them the confidence, but they have the confidence to be the leader at school when somebody's trying to bully one of their friends. And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Their friends totally brought something to school they should not have, and Ollie marched straight in and was like, "You're not supposed to do that," and let the teachers know. And they were like, "I did this because I care about you and I want what's best for you." So like to say that the child doesn't know who they are and where they fit in the world is just bogus.
And just to throw it out there, one of the big issues people have in this case is Ollie is 13, but their size makes them look like they're 9. And when the people on the other side, the cult, they really hang on to that they're 9 and they don't know what they're doing and try to paint Ollie as in this very young, dumb kid. And it's the complete opposite.
I'm not surprised Ollie is how they are with the stories you guys just told, just knowing you guys as human beings. And it doesn't surprise me. For what it's worth, I think you guys are doing an amazing job.
I appreciate you.
No, of course. And it ironically ties into, so you just talked about how it's been said that Ollie can't articulate how they feel. You also brought up the Senate and how Ollie spoke to the Senate, which ties me into the very next question. So while reading the CFI report, I have to say, just like when Ollie spoke to the Senate in Colorado, the way that they spoke to the investigator, I can still not believe how young they are and have surpassed that age peer group. They are also, it also shows how emotionally mature they are, that even while crying on the Senate floor about how they feel, about how they're being treated at their father's home, would be more than fucking happy to go back to how things were if the father could just acknowledge how Ollie feels. Not even asking for acceptance, just asking for you to acknowledge how they feel. And I saw in the CFI report, and it baffles my mind that Ollie is not allowed to bring pride paraphernalia, I'll call it, into the father's home, but yet it's okay for the rainbow to be on the wall in the room, which kind of contradicts itself. So you just talked about, we just spoke about how Ollie's clearly capable of articulating. As parents, how proud does it make you hearing how Ollie was able to talk to a bunch of fucking strangers who held essentially a huge fucking bill that pertains not solely to Ollie, but solely can affect Ollie? How proud of parents does that make you guys feel hearing those words perfectly articulated to a bunch of fucking people like that?
Well, first of all, it wasn't just in front of the senators. The other half of the room was hate. It was straight hate. It was Christians hate. It was backcountry, just don't know how to grow and do any better. And Ollie's in there with rainbow paints and just ready to give it to whoever tried to give it to them. And to know that I have really instilled such confidence in that child to be who they want to be with no hesitation. It's really hard to put into words, because one thing I say around here that always gets me just fired up is like, I'm literally doing the bare minimum. Like, just loving, supporting whoever your child is under any circumstances should really be the bare minimum, instead of looked at like a fucking hero. It's crazy. And when you just ultimately support your child and make sure that they stay on a good path, right? That isn't a like, no matter what you want to do, you're gonna be successful, right? We know you gotta still buckle down, do the hard work, but this kid does that hard work. And knowing that the role model that this child has for the graduation and the skills and the writing and being able to change the world from your words, they've really soaked that in and decided that they would like to do something similar. You couldn't be any prouder as a parent. And the one other thing I will share that's made me completely ridiculously proud is, so when I met them, they were in an apartment, and instead of dad paying the child support that he was supposed to, he saved money and bought a house during COVID. And one of the things that just wrecked me as a step parent when I brought them into the house that I bought and owned, Ollie said they never thought they would ever live in a house. They thought mom was always going to be in an apartment. So couldn't be any prouder providing a home for the child.
Why you gotta do that, man?
I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting that towards the end.
I mean, I don't know how any parent could watch what Ollie did and not really be left a little bit in awe, a little, wait, we're a little afraid here. We got an interesting couple teenage years ahead of us. If they're going to talk to the Senate like that, I can only imagine what's coming here at home. But no, really, I, I talk about this a lot here at home, and why I ended up really truly at the heart of it pursuing an English degree. When you are 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds soaking wet in this world, uh, physical safety is not on your side. And particularly as a woman in a very hateful world, not every opportunity is there for you to keep yourself safe. So you better be smart. And I think this goes back to talking about what it's like to be a parent that's a survivor of sexual assault. I wanted to make sure that my child had the opportunity to talk their way out of anything, or into anything for that matter, to open doors, to convince people why they should take a chance on them. And that kid, let's do a little context of prep for this speech, because I love telling this story. Ollie wrote a speech. Ollie sat and spent some time working on it in their room and hand wrote it out, and they were all excited, and they wanted to take a couple days to edit it and work it through, and we talked about it. And before I could really even like mom them and give them the rhetoric, like, let's just kind of like talk about breath and tone and everything, they were like, I'm gonna rewrite this. So we were driving home from school, and they pulled their phone out, and they were just mad. They were in a mood that day. And they thumb punched that phone into that speech and read it twice before they asked us to time it.
Yep.
And
Everybody had to get their speeches under 2 minutes.
yep, you had to do 2
That was
minutes
the
for the
rule.
floor speech.
That's your time.
We gave no notes. There's a lot of murmur on the other side that child didn't write that speech, and I get it. I get it. There are very few 13-year-olds, let alone 13-year-olds, who have been living in adversary for the last 12 to 18 months, that can come out and put something like that together. I understand the doubt, but that is Ollie's work through and through.
And they'll see it. They'll see it as we continue. And Ollie has been bitten by the activist bug, and they'll be out there giving more speeches. So I
Yep.
promise.
Yeah. So I couldn't be more proud. I think the greatest sign of success is when someone genuinely can't even believe that you've done it because they're so just taken aback by the work. So um not only proud of what they wrote and what they put together, but the courage to let me be super clear. Ollie didn't just like wait for their turn. Ollie didn't play on their phone the whole time. They had their moments. They're a teenager, but for the most part, they listened to all
All the
7 hours, 6 hours of testimony preceding them. Not just the people supporting them, but the people against them.
That's what I'm saying. That they heard a lot of hate that day.
Yeah.
They listened to a gentleman before them say that non-binary children don't exist. Like
Yeah.
they literally within minutes before speaking heard someone say that, and then listened to two people who claim to be their father's friends that they met a couple weeks earlier at an anti-trans event speak about them as if they weren't in the room,
Sitting right next to them.
lying about what was going on. And I truly can't imagine the cognitive dissonance for a 13-year-old to sit through something like that and then still march up there, not hesitate, and fist pound their demands to that Colorado Senate.
Yeah.
And then let's be clear, to 48 hours go back to Dad's
Yeah, they're back over there
to
at Dad's
defend that speech again.
having those same arguments still going on. They don't even get to just be proud and move on. It's still defending who they are. So yeah, I'm proud and very loud about it. That's probably why we're here. If we're gonna be super duper transparent.
Absolutely.
Honestly, after hearing that part too, which is something that I was also unaware of, is that Ollie was listening to everything that was being said as an adult who has trouble coming to fucking terms with the fact that it's 2025 and these are still fucking conversations that are happening. And I'm 37 years old. So to hear a fucking 13-year-old child hear all that stuff before and still fucking be able to stand there speaks volumes of who Ollie is as a human being. And I think Ollie might have just become a hero of mine because I don't think I could have fucking done that. I don't think I could listen to literally so many people talk about hatred towards me for just wanting to be happy and then stand there. I don't think I could do that. So fucking amazing job. Absolutely amazing job.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, they sat there in a room. We were lucky. We got shuffled in a small little room that we actually could give some responses without getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I watched Ollie sit there and watch her father give his speech to the Senate floor, and it was a difficult thing to watch, and I think it's what ultimately inspired them to get up there and deliver that fucking speech that they did. It was an amazing day to watch them grow into the person that they're starting to grow into. That was a big day to watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. They've not been the same since in the very best way possible.
They love the popularity as we do.
Good. Now, and as they should. As they should. Although we got to talk about that Avril Lavigne. That's the only thing that I'm not a fan of. But aside from that, Ollie, you're fucking amazing. So the last question that I have for you guys, we both we've all spoken about TikTok and other forms of social media. For those people that don't know, both Jason and B are very big influencers on TikTok. They have lots of people that follow them, that pay attention to their every move, both good and bad. So the question is, with both of you being influencers on social media, do you find yourself getting more support from people with everything going on, or do you find yourself getting less support? And by that, I mean, do you find more people reaching out that are in opposition of your stance, or do you find you're getting way more support and the hate is getting filtered so far down because of the support you're receiving?
I'm gonna go first on this one.
Okay.
So I actually love that you asked this because TikTok is such a fascinating social experiment. My page is drowning in love. I probably can count on both hands the number of comments I've had to delete or review or block. And part of that's part of that's the page that I've built. I really appreciate you asking about the CSA because my platform actually stems from my living after surviving, and I talk about what it was like to live in survival mode for so long and how to pursue happiness and joy now.
Yeah, her first big viral video that hit like 500,000 was about going to court and fighting against her sexual abuser as an adult to try to get off the list.
Yep. So there's another big video I have where someone came to bash on victims in the comment section, and I ran them ragged, and that video popped. And I don't think my algorithm's really ever been the same since. My comment section's a pretty safe space.
Yep.
I would also say maybe the slight difference I get that you don't get as much of is I'm starting to get the moms. I'm getting the moms in my DMs that are like, "Hey, I've been through something. I'd really like to talk to you." And please keep doing that. Like all of you that are doing that, I'm a little slow to respond sometimes. I'm just kind of a chaotic person in general, but I feel like a lot of moms don't talk about it because we don't want to put our kids in the center of light that they don't need to be in. But also, um, we can't keep being afraid all of the time. And I think the more that we get out there and we celebrate our children and celebrate in the safe way, I understand there's red states that we need to be cautiously positive in who we are. But my page is all love, and I hope that it stays that way, and I hope that a community continues to grow out of what we're doing here because this isn't about growing the page or becoming a bigger influencer. It's always been about community on my page. I'm one of the few people that has their original TikTok page actually.
Facts.
Not a lot of people do that have been in any sort of controversy. So I have a lot of mutuals that I've had all this time. Your page, it's a blend, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I've had 55 accounts. This is my 55th account on TikTok.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I know.
That's more than half a century if we go by years.
It feels like we've lived that long on TikTok, to be honest.
And
Yeah.
I would like to say it shows, resilience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will blame this one for part of that because every time I'm like, I don't have it in me anymore to build a new page. And she's like, your voice is important. People really, really, really listen to you, latch on to you, feel safe around you. Look, I'm not a fool. I know I look like a Republican. I know I look like the right. And
So you shake that hair out.
yeah, but
Yeah,
like
I didn't
that's
know you
kind
had long hair until like a week ago, by the way, and I've known you for like about a
But-
year.
I know it's like way down here.
It's beautiful.
It's super long. But that's part of the thing, right? The schnick, whatever you want to call it. Um and when I started this account, there was a lot of hate. Like my page has always been about coming over here as a Republican and just trying to rip me apart, report the shit out of my account. That's how I got the name, right? Punks, the one you love to hate. And I'm gonna be very honest, when I put that up on my page, like that's when things kind of changed. Like I became more of a instead of the person that attacks Republicans, I was always more on I was starting to take more of the defensive side. And so I was getting a lot of the hate, but like at this time when this page, that's where like I can only live in the last year on social media because this page is a year old and it's a different page than any page I've ever
Oh yeah.
had. But this page has been way more about positivity. It's been way more about like I would post those long Obama. We talked about this, Pete, those long Obama speeches, and that just brings so much hope, hope, inspiration, a better time in America where we could all get along even though we disagreed. It wasn't such political turmoil. But since this little shift, whatever you want to call it, has happened with the non-binary and the trans, like I get people reaching out to me every day. Hey, we're over here on the Western Slope. We see your videos. They're getting across the country. People are seeing your name. They're seeing you. Thank you for stepping up. And because when a big, giant, scary guy gets in your face and says, fuck you, trans rights are human rights. And if you disagree with me, there's a chance you're going to have to pick up your fucking teeth. That
Mhm.
changes it. We've changed the equation of when the situation arises, right? So now I have embarked into this, like when you go in some of these videos that I've made about the father over there, like everybody in there is like, you're my new dad. And I've never experienced that kind of like really like, hey, your story is making a difference and you're telling my story. And I really love that. It's changed and it's made me realize that people really do need a leader, somebody who's willing to stand in front and take those initial hits and show that it's okay. And so as an influencer, like I'm really excited where this is headed. I feel like everybody is starting to see us. We go to places, people recognize us.
Weird.
We go to the protests. People want us to speak now. They want us to be part of the communities. I've been offered a press badge so that I can go into these events and get a little bit closer coverage and not get kicked out. I'll have to learn to behave a little better. But like, I
Yep.
really feel like for the first time, my page is making a difference in other people's lives instead of just like me trying to create a page like I've been doing all this time. So it's so much more love, and the hate is more robots than actual people. Like
Mhm.
most of the things I respond to, they don't have any followers. It feels very body. So I do think it's getting better, and I'm so proud after all the activism as we started this whole episode 1 podcast of like where we started. Like it feels very full circle for me as an influencer because I never knew how to get my voice out there. I knew I stood up for human rights. I've always been accepted in every single community that I've ever tried to be a part of or just end up being around. I've never not been accepted, and I never knew how to get my voice out there. And so she always reminds me that it's an important voice because people love to hear what you have to say and how you say it. So I couldn't be prouder of the social media influence I have going on.
Those are both great answers. I'm so fucking happy that there wasn't more hate than fucking love. That was so fucking wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I'll give you that social observation is like we went to the counter rally right before speaking at the Senate, and opposition tried to put together like a press conference, and there was like 55 people, 50,
Yeah.
70 people there. Um, but boy, they really talk like they really are the biggest and baddest. They like really tried to inflate numbers, and
But it's negativity.
the way that they speak at the hearing and the rhetoric that they perpetuate, like I see where people get overwhelmed and concerned. Like your question is very valid, and I think people really wonder what the level of hate is. It's not. It's 2025.
Yep.
And not every state is like this. We are definitely a more progressive state,
And
but
one of the probably the most progressive state in our country.
we're giving California a run for their money anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
we've never been afraid to stand up to Donald Trump and the administration.
right.
And that's the political people and the people of the state.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think the hate is nearly as loud as they want everybody to think that it is. I think everybody is generally ready to move forward. I know we have talked for a very long time tonight, and we have more episodes to do. And at some point, I would love for you to tell the story of your coworker and his
Yeah.
unawareness of this bill, because the rhetoric that's put out about protecting trans people is like we're asking for the most unreal, unpredictable thing, and it's not. They're
The-
very basic dignity, and when you explain that to people who are not deeply in politics, they're like, "Oh, that's actually pretty normal."
And
So,
Yeah.
and that's a great segue. Like that's kind of what we plan on doing on some of this podcast, right? We want to dissect some of the things that are happening and make people understand so they're not so big and scary.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
also this podcast is going to be political. We're going to get on some football games. There's going to be times where I'm going to make this guy Pete come on here and we're going to do some
Fuck that
music.
guy. Fuck
We're
that guy.
gonna so I think that's a good
Yeah, I mean it's why we're here. I appreciate you asking that as your final question, because it is. We're here to punch back.
and then I just want to take this a little bit of time to also appreciate you, Pete.
No,
You made
no,
this
no, no. This
Yeah,
is
you
your
made
thing.
this very, very easy. This was B's idea to bring you on and do this as an interview style. And after doing the radio show with you and getting to know you, it was a no-brainer, and I just want to thank you for doing this. I know this isn't the easiest thing, but you make it very easy, and you ask the questions that most people that would be in this situation want to ask. And that's why I thank you. I appreciate you, and I look forward to doing a lot more shows with you, brother.
I cannot thank you enough. This was when you guys told me you wanted me to do this. At first, I didn't know how to respond because
Because you were just out of surgery.
well, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that too.
We're really great about timing our requests from our friends.
No, but yeah, I was like, yeah, let's definitely do it. Let me sit in this chair while I'm in excruciating pain. I no, but for real, I was honored. I was honored as soon as you guys asked me to do it, and there was no way in hell that I was saying no to that. This is definitely something that's completely out of my normal realm of what I personally do, both on TikTok and as a radio show host. But like this is such an important thing that once you guys said that you didn't trust anybody else to do it, I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no way I would say no. So
No pressure.
I'm beyond though, realistically, I'm beyond honored, and I don't think I have the words to express the gratitude that I feel that you guys allowed me into not only just this story, but like your personal lives as well. I've told you guys off of TikTok and stuff, things that you guys have influenced in my personal life, which I owe you guys tremendous amounts of gratitude for. So this has been by far one of the coolest experiences of my life.
And that means a lot. That means a lot to us. Every time we get a little new piece of information, we're looking at each other like this is a wild ride we're on, and we're gonna jump on it, put the seatbelt on, and go as fast as she's willing to take us.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
It's great for us to hear that things are positively moving in your life, because I think that's also part of what we want to do here.
Yeah.
Is that the world feels kind of dark right now, feels a little lacking of hope and a little lacking of things to hold on to. And
Mhm.
we're hoping that what we bring to the table is a little bit of comedy, a little bit of lightheartedness. Everybody breathe a little bit.
Yep.
But also like
Talking about the serious topics of the world going on right now.
there's hope to be had. There's a fight to maintain, and there's something to look forward to. And we appreciate your lack of fear to jump in this fight with us. It's no small one. We know what it means to put your face and your name and your brand on this too. So kudos to you for being a real one and a good one, and thanks for spending this insane amount of time with us.
Of course.
Have a nice day.
This is the intro to our podcast. It's time to join the resistance and fight back. So ramp it up, it's going down. It's punching back with B and punks.